Hello everyone, and welcome to another game from round 5 of the Gashimov Memorial 2018. Well, not another game, since this is the first game I'm showing you from round 5. The previous one was from round 4, that nice victory, Topalov versus Mamedyarov. But here again we have an interesting game where Carlsen already on move 5 goes completely out of book and plays a move that isn't found in any database, or so they say. And it's a very interesting game, and well, you'll just have to see it. And I did prepare the final standings, not the final, the standings after round 5, so I do hope I remember to show you those after I show you the game. So Carlsen opens with e4, we have c5, and now knight to c3. So okay, this isn't weird. I mean, it is a bit weird. So far, any game I've seen Carlsen plays against the Sicilian, he would go for the usual knight to f3. So maybe he just doesn't want to show Caruana what his plans against the Sicilian are. You know, being all secretive for November. We have d6 and now d4 nonetheless. C captures on d4, queen captures on d4, and knight to c6. And here usually you will see either queen to d3, or you'll see bishop to b5, and maybe after bishop to d7 only then queen to d3. But Carlsen immediately retreats the queen to d2. And it's quite a weird move, you know, you're blocking your dark square bishop, so obviously you will develop at some point, but now it's very interesting how you will do it. So let's see how Carlsen does it. Knight to f6, we have b3, obviously going to fianchetto the bishop. We have e6 and bishop to b2, a6, queenside castle, and b5. Wojtaszek is now preparing his expansion on the queen side, hoping for queen to a5 and start pushing his pawns on the queen side. f3, solidifying the e4 pawn, and now h5. h5 is a weird move, to say the least, and I haven't seen any. I don't think there was like an interview after the game or something, but I couldn't really find any ideas behind the h5 move. Maybe after knight e2 to g3, maybe to kick the knight away from g3, or maybe just to grab more space on the king side. Maybe it's some attractive way of maybe developing this rook, but a very strange move. And Carlsen, it seems Carlsen immediately takes advantage of it. He goes knight to h3, and next he will put the knight to g5. Since the pawn is already on h5, there is no h6 move that can kick away the knight. Bishop to e7, and now knight to g5 immediately. We have h4, grabbing even more space here, and now f4 by Carlsen. Bishop to b7, we have king to b1, doesn't want his king on this diagonal. This bishop can always cause some trouble if the queen and king are on the same diagonal, and also it will be useful in the future not to be on the c file when the rook comes to c8. So rook to c8, we have bishop to e2, and now queen to c7. Rook h to e1, knight to h7, and this was, well, it's kind of the critical position of the game. All of the pieces are developed by both sides. This rook, okay, it's not yet developed, but this pawn is already on h4, so it's like the rook is developed on the h file. And it took Wojtaszek some over 30 minutes to play his next move. He played knight to h7. He wants to exchange pieces here, and well, when you're down on space, you want to trade pieces. So knight captures, we have rook captures on h7 and g4 by Carlsen. H captures on g3 en passant, we have h captures on g3 and bishop to f6. Now, all of Wojtaszek's pieces are now eyeing that queen side of Carlsen's. Bishop to d3, x-raying that rook on h7, a rook to h8, and now g4. We have knight to d4 and rook to e3. King to f8. King to f8, a very important move, because Wojtaszek wants to play queen to a5 at some point. But he can never do this while the king is on e8, because now Carlsen would have this well-known idea of knight captures on b5. And now, after queen captures on d2, you have another in-between move of knight captures on d6 that comes with check. So after king to d7, now you would capture the queen, and after, let's say, rook to h1 check, again an in-between move by black, bishop to c1, king finally capturing the knight. Now you have e5, this comes with check, you attack the bishop, and after a couple of more moves, king b2, unpinning, Carlsen would be up a pawn after this little skirmish. So not to allow this, first king to f8. Now there will be no knight b5 to d6 or any other in-between checks ideas. Knight to e2, Carlsen offers a trade of knights, knight captures, rook captures, and bishop to c3. Bishop captures on b2 was also an idea, but both moves are fine for black. We have bishop captures, and queen to e3. And it's not all that easy to find a plan for black. As you can see, Carlsen did a very nice job not allowing this rook to infiltrate by any rank. So rook to c5. We have e5 now, d captures, f captures, and rook to h1. This rook to h1 move is basically the move that loses the game for Wojtaszek. Here he should have continued rook to d5, kind of pinning this bishop, not allowing it to move. Maybe pile up, maybe go even well, not king to e7. Queen g5 will always be nasty, but you know, rook d5, a nice move, waiting for Carlsen to play something. But after this f captures on e5, he played rook to h1, and this is basically the move that loses the game. Carlsen played rook captures, we have bishop captures, and now rook to h2. This comes with an attack on this bishop and also threatens the rook to h8. Rook captures on e5, you can't capture with the queen, then simply rook captures on h1, so rook captures, the queen is attacked, but now comes rook to h8 check. King to e7, and now queen to a7 check, and it was actually in this position that Radoslaw Wojtaszek resigned the game. It might be a weird decision to resign a game in a position like this. You're so close to checkmate. If rook e1 can only be played, this would be checkmate, but Wojtaszek calculated precisely, and whatever he plays here will lose immediately. He doesn't really have a lot of options. He can go king f6 or king d6. He can also give up the bishop, but that's kind of pointless. So let's see what happens if he goes king to d6. If king to d6, it's actually mate in 5. Rook d8 check, king moves, now queen captures a6 check, king c7, now queen to d6 check, king b7, rook b8 check, king a7, and now queen to b6. This will be checkmate. But it's a lot more interesting after this queen a7 check. What if he goes king to f6? Now you're welcome to pause the video here and try to continue this attack for white. It's quite an interesting continuation to the attack. So feel free to do so, or if maybe you don't want to, maybe you just want to enjoy the show. Let's see what would happen. Well, the move, of course, you have to find is g5, forcing either the king or the rook to capture it. If rook captures, then simply rook captures on h1. The rook is away from the e-file. There is no more rook e1 checkmate. So obviously, after g5, you have to capture with the king, as the king can't go to e7, and the light squares are covered by the bishop. So after king captures on g5, now you have queen to e7 check. And you can either block with the pawn, or you can go king to f4. If you go king to f4, then you get queen h4 check, king moves, queen g3 check, king moves, now comes queen f2 check, king moves, and now again you got the king to the d-file, rook d8 check, king moves, rook c8 check, king moves, and now you grab the queen, and black loses the game. But after this queen to e7 check, black can also block with this f6 move. But if he plays that, then queen captures on g7 check, king moves, rook h4 check, king e3, queen g1 check now, king d2, and queen to c1. This will again be checkmate. So after seeing all of this, Wojtaszek saw that whatever he plays, everything will result in checkmate, and he decided to resign the game here. So this is Carlsen's first victory in this tournament. It only happened in round 5, and it's very interesting here. I do have the standings after round 5. In first place we have Vesel and Topalov, as he won another game, also in round 5 against David Navarra. So as you can see, Carlsen in second place, and Carlsen and Topalov are the only two players that actually won at least one game. All of the other players have either drawn all their games or lost some of the games. But those are the standings. Topalov, Carlsen, Anish Giri in third, then Timur Rajabov, Rauf Mamedov, Sergei Karakin, Ding Liren, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, Radoslaw Wojtaszek, and David Navarra. Those three in the last 3 places that have lost at least one game. So yeah, it's a very, very tough tournament, and I did hear the Ding Liren versus Anish Giri was quite an interesting game in round 4 that Ding missed a win. So maybe I'll check it out and see if it's worth showing. Hope it will be. But until then, we'll see. I will check up out some other games, and feel free to use hashtag suggestions to suggest some of the games you like in the comments. There are a lot of suggestions, so I can't show all of them, but I will see all of your suggestions. You don't have to worry about that. And at some point, while I'm browsing through the suggestions, I will show your game. So yeah, that's basically it. I do hope you enjoyed it. As usual, you can check all my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with another interesting game. Thank you all.